The use of feedback. So far I have looked at rapport, listening and questioning skills in terms of delivering client-centered learning as opposed to instructor-led teaching. In this webinar I am going to look at feedback. Developing feedback skills in your customers is the key to safe driving. This is the most important skill. The whole point of building rapport, actively listening and asking effective questions is to develop the client's ability to feed back to themselves how they are getting on. With client-centered learning, feedback is used to raise the client's self-awareness of their strengths, limitations and development needs. Also of how their thoughts and feelings impact on their behaviour. For this to be effective, the instructor needs to be able to develop the client's ability to set their own benchmark against which they can measure their performance. This process takes more or less time, depending on the level of independent thinking the pupil is capable of. For example, when someone asks you, "Would you like tea or coffee?" what is your response? Some people will say, "Whatever is easiest for you." This is often a conditioned and polite response, but it betrays the fact that some people find it difficult to make choices. Being able to make choices, recognizing consequences, and understanding the impact that choice will have on you as an individual is the result of effective self-evaluation skills, the ability to give oneself feedback. When you ask your pupil how something went, the response may well be, "I'm not sure." This is not necessarily the time to dive in and give your opinion on how it went. Developing in your clients the ability to consider how their driving is coming along and giving them the skills to do so once they have passed their driving test will enable them to recognise a near miss and reflect on this in order to take steps to prevent it from happening again. If someone blasts their horn at you, how do you feel? Some people will feel a surge of rage which will consume them for moments, and during those moments they could make decisions that are fueled by their anger. In extreme cases, these decisions result in examples of road rage. Other people feel immediately embarrassed and assume they have done something wrong. This embarrassment is also consuming and may lead to decisions that are less than safe, such as sudden braking or swerving without checking the mirrors. Still others may feel fear, again resulting in unsafe actions as a result. Do you know how you respond? Do your customers know how they will respond? Do they understand how their feelings affect their thought processes and therefore their actions? Understanding how our emotional state motivates our behaviour is the first step to anticipating the likely consequences of the choices and decisions we make. Knowing how to manage our emotions so that the choices we make are safe is the result of feedback and self-evaluation. Making mistakes whilst learning to drive provides an ideal context to develop self-evaluation skills. With traditional instructor-led driver training, we focus on the core competencies of fault identification, fault analysis and fault remedy. By dealing with faults and through repetitive practice, we bring people's driving up to a satisfactory level so that they can take and pass the practical test. On a behavioural level, this works very well, but it doesn't take into consideration the fact that our thoughts and feelings drive our behaviour. A learner driver behaves in a certain way because they will be rewarded by their driving instructor and allowed to go for their driving test. However, this behaviour will not necessarily remain in place, and when put under different pressures, driving unsupervised, the now newly qualified driver will drive in a certain way according to their beliefs and motivation, and not because their driving instructor told them to. So, how can we develop self-evaluation skills in our clients? Let's take a brief look at reflection and scaling. Reflection is arguably the most important process we can use because it reinforces learning and helps it to become long-lasting. It is through reflection that we can learn from our mistakes and move forwards. Some people reflect formally by writing everything down and keeping reflective diaries. Others just spend a few moments thinking about what happened and breaking the whole thing down in their minds. An important part of reflection is to consider how you were feeling and what you were thinking, because both feelings and thoughts play a part in the behaviour that is displayed. Developing these skills of reflection in your clients is about encouraging them to think about a piece of their driving and looking at what happened. They may need to draw a diagram or go back and look at the scene. They may need to drive the same route again. Or they might benefit if you drive. Ask them what they were thinking at that precise moment, and then ask them what they were feeling. These questions help them analyse their actions and encourage them to take responsibility and put strategies in place to develop. Great reflective questions for developing feedback skills are: what just happened? What were you thinking? How were you feeling? What do you need to do next time to develop? What help do you need from me? How will you know when you have succeeded? Scaling is a means of reflection and a powerful feedback tool because it develops self-evaluation skills and keeps the responsibility for the learning process sitting firmly with the person doing the learning rather than the person doing the teaching. It doesn't matter what the scale is. It can be a ladder drawn on a page or a set of steps. It can be a numerical scale from 0 to 10 or 1 to 5. It can be a ruler held in your hand or theirs. The important thing is that the limits are defined. For example, on a scale of 0 to 10, where 10 is very good and 0 is rubbish, where would you put yourself regarding the bay parking you just did? The answer they give does not matter. There is no need for you to comment. The next question is about their evidence for putting themselves at this point. Encourage them to look for positive evidence. Even if they gave themselves a 1, they have at least got off the ground, so you can ask, what was good enough to make you give yourself a 1? The next questions might be, so where would you like to be? How will you get there? Do you need any support from me? How will you feel when you have got there? These questions keep the responsibility sitting with the client, and you are just there to facilitate the process. Practiced often enough, scaling becomes a feedback technique they can take away and apply in their driving once they have passed the driving test. Scaling can be used very effectively on feelings. How tired, confident, stressed, focused are you on a scale of 0 to 10? Describe a situation where you are at a much better point on the scale. What do you need to do to get there? How can I help you? Also, scaling works very well when giving feedback on the use of the controls. For example, on a scale of 0 to 10, where 10 is amazingly smooth and 0 is horrendous, where would you put yourself with the last gear change? Okay, so you say you are a 3, next time aim for a 4. As far as client-centred learning and coaching are concerned, it is not constructive or helpful to constantly be throwing away words like excellent, well done, that's great. These do nothing to develop self-evaluation skills in your clients, and often silence is far more powerful. They need to know how to congratulate themselves on their strengths and to also be able to identify their weaknesses and have the skills to develop and improve. Your job is to help them set a benchmark by which they can measure themselves. At times it is necessary to give praise, especially with someone who is not very good at evaluating their own performance, because this helps them set their own benchmark. You should, however, cut back on the praise you use as soon as you notice the time is right, because you are restricting their self-evaluation processes by constantly chipping in with your opinion. Easing them into the process of self-evaluation so that they can take full responsibility once they have passed their driving test will help keep them safe for life.